Today, we're diving into the world of the honeybee. But we're not really talking about an insect. We're actually going to explore something much bigger. Based on a fascinating sociological study called Buzz, we're going to see how our feelings about bees, well, they're really just a mirror reflecting our own hopes, our fears, and even our prejudices.
Okay, let's start with something I'm pretty sure we can all relate to, right? That sharp, sudden, infuriating pain of a bee sting. Ugh, it's just this primal thing, isn't it? A moment where the natural world just violently breaks right into your personal space. It's a feeling of violation, of fear, and honestly, it's the perfect place for us to start this story. So I want you to think for a second. When you see a bee, what's your first gut reaction? Is it pest? Is it, oh, a helpful pollinator? Or is it something else? Whatever it is, just kind of hold that thought. We're going to come back to it. All right, so for this first part, we're going to look at how that very personal fear, that sting, can actually morph into something totally different, a deep fascination. So the authors of this study, Buzz, Lisa Jean Moore and Mary Kosut, they weren't bee experts. Not at all. They were sociologists, used to studying human stuff, like art scenes or body modification. They started out with the same anxieties most of us have about bees, but they did something kind of brave. They pushed past that fear and started climbing onto these hot tar paper rooftops all over New York City. Why? To totally immerse themselves in the wild subculture of urban beekeeping. So while our researchers are getting up close and personal with bees on rooftops, the rest of the world was starting to panic about them for a totally different reason. The bees, they were disappearing. Yeah, back in 2006, this really chilling mystery started to unfold. Beekeepers would go to check on their hives, and they'd open them up to find them just eerily empty. The adult worker bees were just gone, vanished. No dead bodies, nothing. Just the queen and a few young bees left behind. They called it colony collapse disorder, or CCD, and it basically sparked this global firestorm of panic. And here's where it gets really, really interesting. The search for why this was happening basically split into two totally different camps, two competing stories. On one hand, you had the disease model. This was the neat and tidy explanation, right? There's a single culprit, a specific virus, maybe a fungus, and we just need to find it. It frames it like a medical problem where you can find a silver bullet cure. But then there was the environmental illness model, and this one was way messier, much more complicated. This theory said, hey, maybe it's not one thing. Maybe it's a whole cocktail of stressors, pesticides, pollution, loss of habitat, a combination of things that implicates our entire way of farming. So you see the difference? One is a bee problem. The other, well, that's a human problem. And of course, in the middle of all this uncertainty, the panic was just fueled by sensationalism. You've probably seen this quote. It went everywhere. But here's the thing. Einstein never said it. It's completely fake. But it's just a perfect example of how our anxieties can grab onto these compelling, apocalyptic stories, even when they're not remotely true. So this whole crisis didn't just cause a panic out in the world. It actually exposed a massive split, a deep rift right inside the community of beekeepers themselves. And it revealed these two totally different philosophies about our relationship with the natural world. So on one side of this divide, you've got these scientific beekeepers. They believe in managing the hives, using treatments and technology to fight off pests and diseases. But on the other side, you have this group called the backwards beekeepers, and their whole philosophy is the complete opposite, a totally hands-off approach. They argue that humans meddling is the real problem, and we should just let nature run its course, even if that means some of the weaker hives don't make it. And this right here? This just perfectly captures that interventionist viewpoint. The idea that humanity is the protector, right? We're the guardians standing between the bees and total extinction. The argument is simple. Without us, without our help, the bees are completely doomed. And then, bam, the complete opposite. This perspective says our so-called help is actually harming them, that the absolute best thing we could do for the bees is just get out of the way, let natural selection do its thing. So that's the core question, isn't it? Are we the saviors, or are we the problem? Okay, so this whole debate, it starts to get much, much bigger because bees aren't just out there in hives and fields. Oh no, they are deeply, deeply tangled up in our global economy. So, what are you looking at here? $913 million. That's how much the Clorox Corporation, yep, the bleach company,
paid to buy Burt's Bees back in 2007. That is a staggering amount of money, and it just shows you how much corporate value is placed on this idea of a natural, bee-related product. But look, this goes way beyond lip balm and hand salve. Bees are essentially a vital mobile workforce. I mean, we're talking about entire colonies getting loaded onto the back of semi-trucks and shipped all across the country as pollinators for hire. They're the reason we have everything from California almonds to Maine blueberries. They are a crucial, buzzing cog in the massive machine of industrial agriculture.
And this bee economy is just incredibly diverse. You've got huge corporations like Haagen-Dazs using Save the Bee campaigns for their marketing. You've got local honey being sold as liquid gold at the farmer's market. Bee products are even being used in medicine for things like wound care. And then there's this whole trend of conspicuous consumption. Buying super artisanal, neighborhood-specific honey becomes this status symbol, a way to show off that you have good taste and you care about the planet.
Okay, so all of this brings us to the absolute core idea of this whole explainer. It turns out we don't just use bees, we do something else. We project our own human dramas, our own biases, our own social structures right onto the hive. I mean, just look at how we talk about them. We slap our own gender stereotypes right onto these insects. The queen bee, she's not just a reproductive insect. Oh no, she's the mommy of the hive. She's described as a sexy Italian starlet dodging paparazzi. Her whole value is tied up in her pedigree. And the male drone, well, he's the daddy, but he's also kind of a deadbeat, right? He's described as a loafer. His only job is to mate, and then he dies. It's like we take the incredibly complex biology of a beehive and turn it into this familiar, and let's be honest, kind of tired human soap opera. All right, now take a look at this sign. The language here is so stark, isn't it? Aggressive, Africanized bees. This ushers in one of the most powerful projections we have, the fear of the killer bee, this terrifying insect invader coming up from the south. And this is where anthropologist Anit Singh just connects the dots so explicitly. She argues that the massive panic around so-called Africanized bees, it was never just about the insects. Not really. It was tapping into these much deeper, pre-existing anxieties in our society. Fears about immigration, about racial mixing, about who belongs inside our secret national borders. And this leads to the really provocative question the authors of Buzz ask us to consider. Can an insect be an illegal alien? Think about that. By using words like invader or talking about them creeping over borders, we're literally applying the language of xenophobia to an animal. We're turning a totally natural migration into a political threat. So, we've looked at bees through all of these different human lenses, right? Their fear, through science, through economics, and through our own biases. For this last part, let's try to shift our perspective one final time. If there's one constant theme through this whole thing, it's this. We always see bees through the lens of what we need. Are they a threat to us? Are they a patient for us to cure? An asset for our economy? A symbol for our politics? You see the pattern. It's always, always about us. And so that leaves us with one final, and I think really challenging question. What would happen if we tried, just for a moment, to take ourselves out of the center of the story? If we could somehow listen past the buzz of all our own concerns, what would the bees ask of us? What would they tell us they really need?